delighted to be joined now by Sumit Virmani, Chief Marketing Officer at Infosys, which once again features in this year's BrandZ Global Top 100 Most Valuable Brands. Congratulations, Sumit, to you and everyone at Infosys on this fantastic achievement. And thanks for talking to us today. Now, I'm sure everyone is really keen to know much more about the secrets of Infosys' success. So I'm going to start with a broad question. How do you believe brands add value to businesses?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and truly delighted to be a part of this conversation, and appreciate Kantar actually recognizing Infosys as part of your top 100 brand list. It's truly a privilege, and glad to be here. Uh, to answer your question around the role of brands, I think it's fundamental to understand how do we really see the larger role of marketing itself. And the way I look at it, I think marketing primarily has two big roles. One is to really accelerate growth in the short term, and second, it's all about securing market share in the long term. To that effect, I think brand is that strong asset that's available to every organization to really go out there and achieve these two objectives. After all, brand is really the true emotional bond between an organization and its consumers. And how that bond is strengthened through consistent promise delivery is what truly drives the short term versus the long term aspiration. So, to me, I think the role of the brand is quite foundational in driving long term business success.
And it's great to hear you talk about the long-term importance of brand. That's absolutely something we believe at Kantar as well. So clearly, there have been a number of global headwinds recently affecting all businesses. I'm sure Infosys is the same. What would you say are the biggest challenges Infosys has faced in the last 12 months to 2 years, and how have you gone about overcoming those challenges?
See, as we're all aware, the last 2 years have been tough years for the business, primarily because there's been a fair amount of uncertainty in the global economy. It has been further compounded by geopolitical concerns that we have been witnessing, and as a result, for businesses, the focus on growth has only accelerated. At the same time, when it comes from a perspective of marketing and branding, you actually have to navigate these twin challenges of driving most of your attention to the short term. And that sometimes can place brands in a precarious position, because if they're not balancing the short term growth acceleration, performance driven focus with the long term brand investment focus, it can be a very slippery slope. And what we have tried to do is while drive and extract efficiencies in the short term, partner with our sales teams and actually support in the growth acceleration journey. We've also ensured that we continue to make long term brand investment, whether it's about the Champions Evolve campaign that we launched or the onboarding of the new set of brand ambassadors, because we primarily believe that the research that we've seen over decades, that brands that actually invest through the downturn are placing their business in a better position as the recovery begins to happen. And that's really the balance we've been trying to ensure through these last 2 years.
Well, that makes lots of sense. And going back to brand specifically, we believe at Kantar around the importance of establishing a clear point of difference against competitors and defending it. So what would you say is Infosys' main point of difference, and how do you go about maintaining that?
I'd like to summarize that primarily across the two big pillars of promise and purpose. The promise that we actually espouse into the market is all about navigating your next, which essentially means that the clients that we work with, the global large enterprises that we work with, we as a business actually help them navigate every transformational turn in their business, whether that turn is driven by what's happening in the industry, or whether it's driven by a new tech. After all, it's the foundation of tech that actually enables that transition, and our intent is to make sure that we stay by their side as navigators and help them transition this change alongside them. So that's what's driven most of our innovation into the marketplace, as you saw the big shift that digital drove during the pandemic. You saw the massive acceleration of the cloud. Now we're seeing a massive a shift in AI driven thinking, all that required Infosys to keep evolving its capabilities, keep launching new offerings in time to help deliver on that promise day in and day out. The second dimension is is the dimension of purpose. After all, uh, uh, it's what you're truly about is defined by the purpose that you espoused into the marketplace. And Infosys as a brand has been a purpose driven brand right from its uh, foundational days, well before purpose became omnipresent narrative. Whether it's about a commitment to community when we started the Infosys Foundation nearly 30 years ago, or whether it's about a commitment to sustainability where we went carbon neutral in 2020, which was possible because we started this journey several decades earlier. So clearly, purpose is as foundational to Infosys as its promise, and the combination of that is what makes Infosys unique.
And difference is one thing, and how do you approach making that difference relevant to your customers and establishing that meaningful connection with customers?
The idea of articulating a promise has to be then driven by that promise being delivered with every shift in the industry. And let me give you an example. When there was this massive digital acceleration, massive uh, adoption of cloud, Infosys was the first tech services brand in the industry to launch Infosys Cobalt, which is a portfolio of our cloud services to actually eliminate the chaos around cloud with a very clear point of view as to how Cobalt is going to enable that transition for them. The same thing is true for AI. Well before AI actually became the buzz that it did, we were again one of the first in the industry to launch Infosys Topaz, which is again a solution that helps clients navigate their journey across a portfolio of products, platforms, and services. So the idea simply is articulating a promise is one thing. How can organizations continue to stay relevant to their clients by looking around corners and proactively investing in innovations, testing them at scale, and actually bringing it out to the market with confidence. And we believe one of the reasons why Infosys brand has stood the test of time is because of our foundational commitment to promise, but more importantly, our foundational commitment to staying relevant to our clients' requirements.
Great. And when we talk about brand equity at Kantar, we talk about a brand's ability to predispose customers to actually choose it ahead of others. From a content perspective, a marketing content perspective, how do you approach creating content that can actually positively impact customer attitudes and contribute towards that predisposition?
I think it all ultimately comes down to what's your North Star? And I think a North Star for any brand doesn't necessarily have to be what it offers, but it has to be what the customer needs. And your communication has to actually stay relevant to the shifting needs of our customers. Let me actually give you an example, something that I believe Gen AI has recently enabled and empowered marketers in very unique ways. Now, you know, our commitment to the larger sport of tennis globally, how Infosys is very strongly partnering with the global tennis ecosystem. And tennis fans are one of the consumers that we serve along with our clients, which is the tennis stakeholders. Uh, Earlier this year, Rafa, who's one of our brand ambassadors, was actually supposed to make his return back to the Australian Open, and there was massive excitement around it because it was supposed to be his return after a significant injury, and just a few weeks before the Open, he had another injury, and he actually had to pull out. We realized that that caused a massive disappointment in millions of people. I mean, the tennis has a billion spectators around the world, and Rafa is one of the icons of the sport that people were waiting to welcome back and actually celebrate his return to a Grand Slam. Since that was not possible, we actually used the power of Gen AI and actually empowered each and every tennis fan around the world to be able to create their own little artwork celebrating Rafa in with the fans' own imagination as the backdrop. The idea was very simple, but the intent here is brands have to use platforms and create content that empowers the end consumer, that empowers the customer in the way they can express themselves. Something that today technology makes it possible. But then again, after all, the idea simply is to strengthen that connect between the brand and the consumer. And that's what the job of the content.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. I'm interested to learn more about that campaign. So you talked earlier around the role of brand in the short term and the long term. I think there's always a challenge around how marketing budget is invested between brand building, longer term and shorter term activation. So I just wondered how you approach that long term versus short term budget allocation within your marketing spend at Infosys.
I think that that's a great question, and frankly, there's no easy answer to this. My sense is that it's no template, and while there's a broader guideline around how every business and every industry approaches it, for us it's been very simple because uh, we've we have nurtured a deep partnership between business and the marketing team over the years to ensure that there is a clear approach to how we measure marketing success. And that marketing success is measured across two big portfolios: business impact and brand impact. And business impact clearly outlines and measures metrics that makes sense to the business, not just vanity metrics that we all get excited about by seeing the number of impressions or merely share of voice, but actually see how that marketing interventions is impacting your funnel, impacting your win rate, and actually impacting the growth. And that is something marketing has to take a bottom line for, stick its neck out, and really make itself accountable. That's when the respect comes from the business. The long term, therefore, becomes easier because as business sees marketing delivering on the short term, the idea for is to actually educate the larger business around the potential of stronger brands on growth and brand premium and market share in the long term. And once that knowledge is shared within the organization, it becomes easier for marketing to find the right balance. The question simply is, there's no one formula. That balance will actually keep changing depending on the market environment and the organizational needs. But as long as there is an appreciation for short and long term investments, and there is a strategy and appropriate business metrics behind it, I think it becomes so much more easier.
No, thank you. And it's interesting to hear how you approach a challenge that is faced by many of our clients across different sectors. You talked earlier about relevance to customers and the importance of that. I just wondered specifically how you go about monitoring changing consumer needs at Infosys.
Uh, I think it'll be good for us to go back to once again articulating the role that marketing is expected to play. And I think while I talked about the short term and the long term balance earlier, Roger Martin says it quite beautifully that marketing is all about where to play and how to win. Now, while we spent most of our time over the last half an hour or so talking about the win part, I think where to play is equally important, which is essentially what drives the true partnership between marketing, strategy, and the rest of the C suite. Because marketing, in some sense, is a window of the market into the organization. Marketing has an opportunity to firsthand hear from customers what their changing business needs are all about. Marketing interacts with influencers, which actually give them a view on the upcoming trends. Marketing actually gets to speak to multiple stakeholders, and that's what primarily the role of marketing needs to be, to quickly assimilate and identify the changing shifts in the market. I touched upon this earlier as well, but if you look at how we became one of the first organizations to launch an industry's first cloud services brand, Infosys Cobalt, or an industry first AI services brand, Infosys Topaz. The idea was to be able to quickly look at the shifting requirements of our client, staying relevant to their evolving needs, and launching an offering that can help them cut through the clutter and navigate to their destination effectively. So, to me, the role of marketing is as much about understanding what's out there and informing the organization, partnering with the rest of the C suite to really drive the next set of offerings, the next set of promises, which can truly live up to the larger brand promise. And that's the reason why how you stay ahead of the shifting customer needs.
And it's so interesting to hear you describe listening as such an important part of marketing, especially when you're looking to identify new spaces. So thank you for that. And then final question, you talked earlier around AI a couple of times. It's such a hot topic in the world at the moment and in the world of business and marketing especially. So I'm just interested finally just to hear your perspective on how you think AI will continue to shape the world of business moving forward, but also how you see AI playing perhaps an increasing role in the way that Infosys operates, especially from a marketing perspective.
No, I think you're right. I think that there's barely a conversation we are a part of these days where AI is not front and center, and the kind of disruption we've seen Gen AI bring about in the last 6 to 12 months clearly opens up some very exciting possibilities. The way I'm looking at it, again, I'm looking at it from two vantage points: my role as a marketer, and of course, my role as a brand custodian of a tech services organization that provides AI services, and that in some sense gives me a slightly unique perspective. And the way I'm seeing it impact marketing is in a significantly disruptive way. There's been a lot of conversations about how one of the functions that is going to get disrupted by AI first would be the function like sales and marketing. And there's been a lot of research talking about the productivity leaps that it can actually deliver for marketing, and rightfully so. Having said that, I believe that the impact of marketing is going to be more holistic and not limited to only productivity. I believe it will go across the entire spectrum of efficiency, effectiveness, and experience. Efficiency, as has been spoken about quite extensively through multiple research findings, we can actually look at the impact of AI on content, on search, on programmatic, really making our spends more effective, our people more productive. But to me, that's the low hanging fruit. The real impact is going to be about in the effectiveness and the experience stream. On effectiveness, we've been talking about the promise of hyper personalization for nearly a decade. Finally, it may actually become a reality if you can actually have an AI layer on top of the tech stack and the data that you've been keeping ready for your customers. That promise of hyper personalization can actually become real. Similarly, on the experience side, I believe that that's one space that we haven't talked about enough, because I think AI can finally democratize creativity. It can finally provide help a marketeer's dream of involving consumers into their brand journeys as real by giving them actually the power to co-create their own campaigns. Look at what Coke is doing with Create Real Magic. Look at what we've experimented with the whole Rafa Forever campaign. So clearly, I believe that the impact of AI can unleash a creative potential like we haven't seen before. And as a function, we truly have an opportunity to elevate the game by embracing AI a lot more holistically, while at the same time being very, very cautious of the pitfalls and being prepared to navigate those pitfalls as we really embrace the opportunity.
Well, there's no doubt the AI revolution is coming. It's great to hear more about your plans in that space. It's clear, Infosys, I'm sure, will stay ahead of the game. Sumit, thanks again for joining us today. Absolute pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully see you in India sometime soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me, and looking forward to the launch of your top 100 list. Thank you.
Thank you.